Welcome back, SmythOS Trailblazers. In our last video, we explored the power of integrating components. Now, we are taking it up a notch by diving into a real-world application that showcases these components in action, the SEO Writing Agent template. Get ready to see how SmythOS can supercharge your content creation process. Let's jump in with Mike as he demonstrates this powerful template. Take it away, Mike.
So what we're going to do is we're actually going to use a template. Again, templates are a great place to start with things. Templates have, in a lot of cases, example uses of components. You'll find that in most cases they have components. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and take a quick look at the SEO Writing Agent and see how it's working and what it does.
Mike's highlighting the value of templates in SmythOS. They are not just starting points, they are gold mines of practical component usage.
We're not going to go ahead and get everything working here, but I want to go ahead and identify specifically what we have and why we have it, right? So to write good SEO articles, you need to be able to actually pull from current data. LLMs are great because they have a view of the internet and content. Even some now are starting to pull from outside the internet, and really have a vast knowledge and capability that's compressed down into your large language model. But at the same time, you absolutely need to be able to pull from and push to other systems, right? In this case, when you're working with an SEO writing, you need to be able to identify the kind of information that you will need by looking at what are called SERPs, or search engine result pages.
This is crucial, folks. Mike's about to show us how the SEO Writing Agent leverages integrating components to access up-to-date information.
So what this particular component does is it actually uses an API to go ahead and run a web search. In this case, we can change that. For example, if we wanted it to be current, we could use news. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and run a web search, and we're going to need an API key to make that happen. So to do that, we're actually going to go to and find our Aves API key, which I know is in here. We use a lot of API keys. There it is. And what you can see here is this looks a lot like the other variables, because that's exactly what it is. And you can use these variables from there. You could, if you didn't necessarily want to put it, or didn't maybe even have access, let's say you're just a developer, but you have access to an API key, you can also use an API key here. And so in this case, you can see that there's these agent level variables. These are for your access to, in this case, the, if I recall correctly, WordPress, right? So this is actually going to be using information about your account to publish into WordPress. But what we're going to do for this component, we're going to go ahead and run this component by itself. This is, again, one of the benefits of actually working in Smyth, is this ability to debug down at the individual level, where you can just run a particular component or a couple components in isolation of each other. So in this case, we're going to look for we're going to look at the Google index for the United States. You can put in other countries as well. We're going to use the English language and the Google domain for www.google.com or google.com, as it may be. And we're going to limit our search results to 10, right? By the way, in the case of components as well, you actually do have access to documentation for those components. So you don't have to guess what all those things are. So inside of that component, you saw, well, how am I supposed to know what these things are all about? Well, they're each and every one of them actually defined very clearly so that you know what it is. In addition to that, and actually important, because what happens if maybe this particular API key is not, or I'm sorry, not this API key, but this API call is not exactly what I want. We may end up using AVES via something else, or using a custom API call.
See how flexible this is? The agent can pull from web searches or news feeds, ensuring your content is always fresh and relevant.
But for all of your components, you'll find that those components are all documented in your SmythOS documentation. Not only that, but the SEO content writer itself is actually also documented here. So the actual tutorial for this particular template is available. You can play the YouTube video and it will walk through the actual building and use of this agent. So if you're interested in doing this, you can get an AVES API key, sign up for an account, get a key, and then use the documentation to even better understand the API call. But in this case, it's pretty simple. As we go through actual API calls later, we will take a look at these codes and why they are so important.
Mike's showing us the importance of documentation. SmythOS doesn't leave you guessing. Everything you need to know about each component is right at your fingertips.
So here's you can see that we've simplified the use of this API by using that component. We've got an overview of this agent setup inside of the SmythOS documentation. And we have the SEO content writer that we're looking at, and the agent itself is right here. So we're going to go ahead and debug we're going to just pull in the query and use the defaults. Just so you know, what I'm saying is I'm not going to inject anything other than the query into here. So if I do this, what do people think is going to happen? Does anybody have any idea? If I go ahead and leave that and I just put in, let's say, generative AI innovations, people think this is going to work?
Now we are getting into the nitty-gritty. Mike's demonstrating how to debug and test the SEO Writing Agent.
Here we go. And it is using our defaults, and here's our output. Now that's our output. We can see, remember, the log is very, very useful if you want to understand what you started with and what you ended with, especially if you get an error. There's a lot more information. And again, you can click to download, open this up inside of your VS Code and look at the structure, and you can understand much, much more about what's going on. But ultimately, what we are looking for here is a set of results, right? So we got the search results. Those were true. Let me go ahead and move down a little bit. So this is, again, this is JSON. We learned a lot about JSON yesterday, and we learned a little bit about how to actually pull and manipulate that and get that out. And remember, we talked specifically about arrays, and here's an array of organic results, or those search results, where we have the title, the URL, and the information about that. So we now have a list of URLs for a query that can actually get us from a phrase to an outline. So that's something we could not do without this particular tool, right? If we were to use an LLM to do this, it would be based on something in the past. And frankly, LLMs are not interested in search results as much as they're interested in the search result pages as much as they are in the actual links off of those pages that they use to train the URL. So this is then going to use a very nice prompt using the kinds of approaches that we talked about yesterday. If you want to see good prompts, you can always take a look inside of our existing templates and get some great ideas on how you can work with prompts. And you can see here that this is taking the keyword and the data from the organic results here, right? So there's our scrape data and our keyword, and these are the optional instructions. We are not using instructions in this case, and we went directly from here. So this is how you use a component and how it can actually help you get data from the outside world and then use it to actually build an outline. And so let's here. This will not work because we did not go from here, from the start, where it has what we need, which is the key phrase that's going to be passed along, as well as the scrape data. So let's go ahead, just so we can see how that content is used. We'll go ahead and go back to here, and we will not have instructions, but we are going to use the key phrase of step. We have our results. Again, this is coming through as an array. And then we will go ahead and step through, and we can actually run this now because we're pulling the keyword from the initial piece. This is going to take a while to run because if you recall, this is a pretty big prompt, or not prompt, but chunk of data and prompt, and it's generating all of these pieces, right? So see how this is a great example of where it's using a prompt to actually pull the information out. She did not have to identify, for example, reply.meta description, reply.meta keywords, or reply.section1, because they didn't exist so easily. Instead, she's able to actually just pull that data out because, and this is again because of the LLM prompt capabilities, of advanced capabilities of being able to extract data out of the results and then allow you to use that to move on from the actual article outline to an actual article.
And there you have it, SmythOS enthusiasts. We have seen how the SEO Writing Agent template combines the power of integrating components with LLMs to create a dynamic content creation tool. It pulls in current data, processes it, and helps you craft SEO optimized content. This template is just one example of what's possible with SmythOS. Imagine the possibilities for your own projects. In our next video, we'll dive deeper into API calls and how to handle them effectively in SmythOS. Keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with SmythOS. Until the next video, happy building.